So when you got a bunch of hardwood skid runners left over, what do you do with them? I think we make a table.
Good day there. My name is Chris. And on this channel, we work with everything from reclaimed lumber, new lumber, building everything from coffee tables to cutting boards. Please like and subscribe. Now sit back and relax, and welcome to Chaos Woodworking. Everybody loves to work with new lumber, but it's not always in the budget. So in this episode, we will be building a table on a budget. Reclaim hardwood from skids. It's a little bit more work, but worth it.
So I don't own a jointer planer yet, but I do have a perfectly straight ProMaster 8-foot level. And as long as you can cover the length of the board on the in feed and the out feed, you can get a 99.9% straight cut.
Now, my table saw, it's a little bit older. It doesn't come with all the safety gadgets, and it's seriously lacking dust collection. But it does the trick, even though it frustrates the hell out of me every time it pops a breaker. So when you're cutting these hardwood slabs, it's a lot easier to make multiple passes. You notice here, I tried taking a little bit too much in one shot, and the board rides up. Nothing worse than being in the middle of doing something and not figuring out what you're going to do with a piece of wood. I eventually get it figured out, lol. Oh well. And on this other board, you notice I didn't lower the blade. So here we go. Multiple passes is the key to success. Well, would you look at that? It looks like we might have gotten this saw figured out. And I didn't lower the blade again. And here we go. Just pop the breaker. Oh, look at that. We got them all ripped down to a usable size. Now we're going to rip them down to 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. Normally, I put a clamp on the end of the table to keep all the boards from falling off. Normally. Apparently, I didn't do that this time. Whole lot easier now when you get them down to a usable size. Give it a quick cleanup. Move all the stock over to the other side. I don't need this 8-foot level anymore. I've got straight cuts. The regular fence can now do the job. And look, putting my stopper on so I don't lose the boards anymore. These boards were too thin to go 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, so we were ripping them down to 1.5 inches by approximately 1 inch. Give a nice staggered seam look on the tabletop. And we start rifling through these. If you made it this far, remember, like and subscribe. It really does help the channel grow. Ha 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 ha, here we go. We're cooking now. Think we finally got this figured out. And these ones we're cutting down again to 1.5 inches by 1/2 inch. I wanted to give the tabletop a nice staggered look. However, we don't actually use these ones in this top, but they'll look great in the next one. Well, I think that's enough cutting on this saw, and I think it's ready to stop too, because right here, we just popped another breaker. Time to give this saw a rest. Let's move over to the next one. On to the chop saw we go. In this one, we're going to be cutting these pieces down to 12 inches long. Well, you see, cutting one at a time was a lot of fun. Let's go for two. Unfortunately, this wood is a little bit too hard. So, back to one we go. Now we move over to the 1-inch strips, cut them down to 12 inches each. Again, I tried biting off more than I could chew. So, knock it down, we'll do 3 strips at a time. So here, we're measuring and cutting down a stopper block. We're going to cut 1.5 by 1.5 and 1.5 by 1 down into 4-inch blocks. That way it gives us a nice brick staggered look effect on the table and makes a stronger top. If you've heard this once, you've heard it 100 times. When cutting, especially smaller blocks up against a stop block, make sure your blade stops turning before you raise the blade. And here's the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's glue this thing together. And look, it's the tabletop jig we built in Let's Get Jiggy. You go watch that video and you can build one of these for yourself. Makes gluing up and clamping so much easier. Also, using Titebond 3 with the longer working time means you don't have to rush through the glue up and you get a much thicker lather as long as you make sure the glue schnoogies are cleaned out of the bottle first. Try this. Nope, not again. There we go. That's what you like to see. So because my lunchbox planer only handles a 13-inch wide piece, we're gluing up a 12-inch wide piece. And this will be just over half the width of our tabletop. Now that we got all the gluing out of the way, time to clamp this thing up. And because we can clamp it right to the jig, keeps it nice and square, it's awesome. But just when you think everything's going fine, disaster strikes. Due to technical difficulties, please stand by. We'll be right back after this brief message.
Slight technical error.
Now, where were we? Oh, yeah, we were clamping this thing up. With minimal pressure on, we take a piece of wood and a hammer and just tap everything towards the wall. A little bit more pressure. Then we'll just tap everything down. Make it as flat and as straight as possible. Give us the best chance for a nice straight glue up. Now we'll just put some cawls on it just to make sure it's got downward pressure. Again, we're able to clamp it right to the jig. Remember, boys and girls, when doing this, make sure you have your clamps ready to go so you don't have to play the Stretch Armstrong game. It just makes life a little easier. Anybody else see the difference? Oh, wait, there's the first one. Yeah, this is the second half of the table. This one's 9.5 inches wide. But just look at how easily this releases from this jig. With a quick wipe down, clean up all the residue glue on it, get it all cleaned up, and get it all ready for the next time you want to use it. Look how clean that is.
Okay, so
And here are the two halves put back together. See how it looks. Time to clean these pieces up, get them squared off. There's many passes that are going to happen here. You're not going to see all of it. And my blades are getting a little dull, so before I do the next table, I'm going to have to put new blades in this thing. But sit back and enjoy. Oh, they're dull, all right. But it's still doing the job.
That's simple.
Look at it cleaning that glue off there. When you don't have a track saw, this works. Time to get a nice square flat edge for glue up. And this old Makita saw, it's built a lot of homes and it still cuts square and true. Like a glove. Look at that. Beautiful. Now that we know that it's nice and flat, take her to the table saw and we'll square up the other side of the board. Get it all ready for glue up. Well, that looks like it's going to glue up nicely. Let's take the two halves through the planer again, get it all cleaned up both sides, so that when it's glued together, it's that much less work. Yeah, and before we go too much further, let's mark up the sides that are getting glued together so we know what ones to look for later on. Well, that tabletop's really starting to show its colors now. Looking great. And hey, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you. I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate all my subscribers. Why don't you smash that like button and leave a comment and let me know what you think. Here we're just putting a little bit of water on it. Look at those colors pop. Wow, that's going to be a beautiful table. And would you look at what made another appearance? That handy dandy jig sure is handy dandy. Sorry, I know that was cheesy as hell, but I had to. Cheers. Seven and an eighth. Three-eighths of an inch off. Hey, Millie. She says if you made it this far, like and subscribe. Well, there it is, all glued up. Got to clean some of the glue off the seam, get rid of the high marks. Two halves together, it's nice and flat. Just gotta get it planed down. Here we're finding center of the tabletop. And then we're going to go 19 inches either side. So we have a 38-inch long table. Everything all said and done, it's 38 inches long, 18 inches wide, inch and a half thick. We'll square it over. Find a round over jig for the end of the table. Grab the skill saw and do a rough cut just outside of the shape. Turn her around, rinse and repeat, and do the same thing to this side. This will be the end of this video. If you stayed this long, thank you. I really do appreciate it. Stay tuned for the next half where we finish this table. Have a great day. Cheers.